Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. The Middle East is once again on fire. Israel has launched a powerful strike deep inside Lebanon, shattering what little hope was left for peace after the fragile ceasefire agreement collapsed. Within hours, explosions echoed across southern Lebanon and even near Beirut, sparking a new wave of panic across the region. Global powers from Washington to Moscow, from Tehran to Brussels, are now scrambling to respond as fears grow that this could spiral into a full-scale regional war. Let's dive into what happened, why it happened, and how the world is reacting to Israel's latest and most dangerous escalation. It all started in the early hours of the morning when Israeli fighter jets reportedly launched multiple precision strikes targeting what the IDF described as Hezbollah command and weapons storage sites in southern Lebanon. The operation was said to be in retaliation for repeated rocket fire into northern Israel the previous night, attacks that had already injured several Israeli civilians and soldiers. However, Lebanese sources paint a different picture. According to Beirut's official statements, the strikes hit residential areas, killing at least 30 civilians, including women and children, and injuring dozens more. The Lebanese government condemned the assault as a flagrant violation of sovereignty and immediately called for an emergency session of the United Nations Security Council. The Israeli military claimed the operation was a defensive measure, arguing that Hezbollah had been exploiting the ceasefire to regroup, rearm, and dig new tunnels along the border. In a statement released by the IDF spokesperson's unit, Israel vowed to take any necessary action to neutralize terrorist threats from Lebanese territory. But Hezbollah was quick to respond. Within hours of the airstrikes, the group fired dozens of rockets toward northern Israel, some of which reached as far as Haifa. Videos circulated online showing Iron Dome interceptors lighting up the night sky. Hezbollah declared that the era of Israeli impunity is over and vowed that every aggression will be met with resistance. This rapid exchange of fire shattered the ceasefire agreement that had been brokered only a few weeks ago by France and Egypt after months of escalating border skirmishes. The truce was fragile from the start. Both sides had accused each other of repeated violations. But today's strikes have officially buried it. In Tel Aviv, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu appeared before the press, declaring that Israel will not tolerate rocket fire or threats from its northern border. He emphasized that any state or group that attacks Israel will bear the full price. Behind closed doors, however, analysts say Netanyahu's government is under immense internal pressure, with ongoing protests, political divisions, and economic strain. Some suggest the Israeli leadership may see external conflict as a means of consolidating internal unity, a dangerous calculation that risks regional escalation. Lebanon, meanwhile, is in no position to handle a new war. The country's economy is already on the verge of collapse. Its currency has lost more than 90% of its value, and its power grid barely functions. The government's capacity to control Hezbollah or even respond effectively to Israel is extremely limited. Still, public anger is rising, and the streets of Beirut are once again filled with anti-Israel demonstrations. Now let's turn to the global reaction. The United States immediately expressed strong support for Israel's right to defend itself, but also urged restraint, warning that escalation will serve no one. Washington's message, however, rings hollow to many observers who point out that the U.S. continues to supply Israel with billions of dollars in military aid every year. Russia, on the other hand, condemned the Israeli strikes as an act of aggression and called for both sides to return to the negotiating table. The Russian Foreign Ministry also accused Western countries of double standards, saying they ignore Israel's violations while condemning others for far less. China issued a carefully worded statement expressing deep concern over the deteriorating situation and urging all parties to respect Lebanon's sovereignty. Beijing has recently been positioning itself as a potential peace mediator in the Middle East, particularly after brokering the Iran-Saudi Arabia rapprochement in 2023. Iran, as expected, strongly condemned the Israeli attack, calling it a cowardly assault on a sovereign nation. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps issued a warning, saying that Israel's reckless actions will not go unanswered. Intelligence sources suggest that Iran has already begun reinforcing its proxies in both Syria and Lebanon, potentially preparing for a coordinated response. European powers are alarmed as well. France, which has historical ties to Lebanon, urged immediate de-escalation, while the European Union called for an emergency humanitarian corridor to aid civilians caught in the crossfire. The United Nations Security Council scheduled an emergency meeting in New York, but as usual, divisions between Western and Russian blocs are likely to prevent any unified resolution. Meanwhile, in the streets of the Arab world, anger is boiling. From Cairo to Baghdad, protesters have flooded city centers, demanding that their governments cut ties with Israel and support Lebanon and Palestine. On social media, hashtags like Israel Lebanon under attack and Stop Israel Now are trending globally, reflecting the growing outrage over the renewed violence. Regional military analysts are warning that this confrontation could quickly escalate beyond Lebanon. Hezbollah's arsenal today is estimated to include over 150 Zalalosan rockets, many of them precision-guided. If Israel continues its strikes, Hezbollah might unleash large-scale barrages that could overwhelm Israel's Iron Dome defenses. In such a case, Israel might escalate further, potentially targeting not just Hezbollah but Lebanese infrastructure itself, as it did in the 2006 war. The danger doesn't stop there. Syria, already a major player in the Iran-backed resistance axis, could be drawn in. Iranian advisors and militias in Syria might launch attacks against Israeli positions in the Golan Heights, forcing Israel to respond on multiple fronts. The result could be a full-blown regional war involving Israel, Lebanon, Syria, and potentially even Iran itself. Experts warn that such a conflict would not only devastate the Middle East, but could also trigger global energy shocks, with Hezbollah capable of targeting Israeli ports and oil facilities, and with Iran's influence over the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical oil choke point. Energy markets could spiral into chaos. Back in Washington, the Pentagon has quietly placed U.S. forces in the region on heightened alert. American warships in the Mediterranean are now within striking range of both Lebanon and Israel. The White House has also opened direct communication channels with Tehran through intermediaries, hoping to avoid miscalculations. Meanwhile, in Tel Aviv, Israeli citizens are rushing to shelters as air raid sirens wail across the north. In Lebanon, families are fleeing border villages, fearing another devastating war. Both nations are living under the shadow of an unpredictable conflict that could explode at any moment. Behind all this chaos lies the fundamental question: what is Israel's endgame? Some believe the strikes are meant to weaken Hezbollah before it becomes even more powerful, especially as Iran continues to arm its proxies with advanced drones and missiles. Others argue that Israel's real motive is to reassert its dominance in a region where its enemies, from Gaza to Tehran, are growing stronger and more coordinated. But what's certain is that the collapse of the ceasefire has once again exposed the fragility of peace in the Middle East. Despite countless mediations, the region remains a powder keg where a single spark, like today's Israeli strike, can ignite widespread war. In the coming days, all eyes will be on how Hezbollah and Iran respond. If Hezbollah launches a large-scale counteroffensive, Israel may retaliate with full military might. If Iran directly intervenes, even covertly, the conflict could draw in U.S. forces, pushing the region dangerously close to a catastrophic confrontation. The world has seen this before, the pattern of violence, retaliation, and failed diplomacy. Yet this time, the stakes are even higher. With advanced weaponry, drones, and cyber capabilities in play, any escalation could unleash destruction far beyond 2006 levels. As the international community scrambles for a diplomatic solution, civilians, as always, are paying the highest price. Families in Lebanon are once again displaced. Children in northern Israel are hiding in shelters, and the dream of peace in the Middle East feels as distant as ever. For now, one thing is clear: the ceasefire is dead, and the world is standing on the edge of a new and unpredictable war. Whether this turns into another limited confrontation or spirals into a regional inferno depends on the next few days, and on whether global powers can finally act before it's too late. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to WarTech Wings for more in-depth analysis on global conflicts, defense technology, and the geopolitics shaping our world.